What is up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of A Kook's Journal. I'm your host, Holly, aka Hizzle, aka A Kook's Journal. The intention behind this podcast is I want to give you guys a fresh perspective on life through surfing. Whether you are a surfer, you want to be a surfer, or you're not a surfer, I think that surfing teaches us so much about life. There's so much that we can learn from it, utilize, learn and grow and become better people and better surfers at the same time. So yeah, that's the whole purpose behind this. I just want to have conversations about water, surfing, and how we can learn more, grow more, and become, like I said, better surfers and people. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before I do start, I just wanted to say that because this is the first episode, two quick announcements. One, I hope the audio turns out well, but I would really appreciate some insight from you listeners on how this sounds for you. I would love to make any changes if something's wrong with it. I've had some small technical difficulties adjusting to this microphone that I'm using, so just let me know. And two, if you're watching, there are two ways you can watch this or consume this content, I guess I should say. You can listen to it as a podcast, or you can watch it as a video on YouTube. So either whatever podcast site you use, or if you go on YouTube, you can just look me up at A Kook's Journal and you can digest this, I guess, however you want to. So yeah, and I'm getting used to watching the audio on the computer, pulling from my notes and looking into the camera at the same time. So if you are watching this, just bear with me because I'm learning. So yeah, this first episode that I wanted to do with you guys makes sense, I think, because I wanted to do something that all surfers and all people can relate to, which is dealing with and conquering fear. It can stop you from getting out in the water in the first place. It can stop you from catching the waves you want to catch and just progressing as a surfer. And obviously on land, it can stop you from doing a lot of things as well. So fear is something that we all experience, and surfing, it has taught me a bit about fear, and I want to share that with you guys. So getting started, the three main ways that I came up with of how surfing can be scary to us is the first one being the fear of judgment. So when you're going out in the water, it can be scary getting adjusted to the lineup. How are you going to be as a surfer? How's it going to go? What's your success rate? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the fear of failure. So how are you going to succeed as a surfer? Sometimes we have an idea of how a session's going to go and it doesn't actually really go that way at all. And it can feel a little bit defeating. And then the third way is the literal fear, survivalistic fear of death and drowning, because we are going into elements that are outside of our control. There is little that we can control when we insert ourselves into a big body of water and try to ride the energy that is pulsating towards the shore. So three real fears, and that's the first thing that I want to kind of say, is that these fears are valid. And I think they're valid because they're very real in surfing. I think sometimes in life we can kind of walk through life avoiding and ignoring facing fears that we have on land, I guess you could say. But when we go surfing and we go out in the water, we are having to face those fears. There's no way not to surf and face those fears unless you just go out in the middle of the channel, hope you don't get caught by some riptide, and just watch the waves from a distance. We have to face fears in surfing, and that's a reason why I feel like they're valid and they're real. And you're not alone in those fears wherever you are in your surfing journey. You know, you could have a fear about getting out in the water, and it could just be even getting out in the water. And then there can also be people who have fears, I'm going to surf this 20-foot wave and that really scares me. And how do I get past that? You know, so there's spectrums of examples of fear, but it's all fear. You know what I mean? When we're approaching fear, I like to approach fear and things, you know, in life through a toolbox. So a toolbox that we can kind of reflect on and pull from as we're going on this journey, and it can help us just cope and conquer fear. So I split this toolbox into 2 categories, physical and mental. So when we're talking about the physical end of the toolbox, it's all about, I think, exercise, breath work, training, and knowledge and preparation. So for preparation, you know, when we prepare for something and we put that time and energy into it, we're naturally going to feel more confident. Even if we don't have the success rate we thought we were going to have, we're going to feel more confident about it. So that means, you know, if whatever body of water you're surfing, study and learn about that body of water. What are ways that it shifts positive and negative in relation to you going out in the water? You know, what kind of sets it off, I guess. And, you know, just the ins and outs of it. How can you feel most comfortable in the water through knowledge? And going into that, like feeling comfortable in the water, training. So if you go out and you're getting tired after 2 paddles, which I am guilty of, it can feel a little frightening if you're already getting tired and you know you have so much more to go to get to the wave, and you know the conditions aren't what you thought they were going to be, and it can all just get like a little bit overwhelming. So if you go out into that session and you are physically ready, you have your endurance and your cardio and your surf muscles in gear, and you're ready to go, you're just going to feel so much more confident about the scenario that's going down. And also going into that, like I said earlier, was breath work. So for breath work, that is going, you know, that can look like a lot of different things of how you want to practice expanding how long you can hold your breath, but that can be really helpful. And then going into the mental aspect of things is kind of adjusting your perspective, which doesn't necessarily mean not like ignoring truth. It just means learning more about truth and utilizing what you know to feel confident about the situation. Like, for example, if you study or learn about what the reality is, you know, if you get held under, if you fall off a wave and you're getting tossed around in the cycle, what's the average amount of time you could be held under for? I know for me, I've not surfed, the biggest wave I have surfed was 8 to 10 feet. And I don't remember if I got held under. It must have not been that bad if I did. But I have had those scary experiences. But even when I did have those scary experiences of being held under, it wasn't more than 5 seconds. Which is not a lot, but when you're under there, it feels like a lot, and I totally understand that. But when you kind of learn and reflect on the fact that, okay, you know, if I can hold my breath for even 30 seconds on land, you know, I will be able to hold my breath for 5 seconds underwater, you know? And I would say the average, like the most average amount of time that you are going to be held under is no more than 10 seconds. So if you can hold your breath for a minute, you can hold your breath for 10 seconds. And I know that there are things like your heart is pumping, your adrenaline is pumping, which kind of makes it feel harder to hold your breath. You're also underwater, very different environment than on land. And maybe you fell and you didn't get to take that breath before you fell. So all these things can play a factor, but average, you're going to be holding your breath for 10 seconds or so. And if you can practice, let's say you practice and you are able to hold your breath for 1 minute and 30 seconds on land, which is, in my opinion, impressive. That is going to help you feel so much more confident about when you're in the water and you know it's going to go south and you feel yourself falling into the water. You take that mental, note of, I know this is how long I can hold my breath. I know the reality of the statistics of the situation of how long I'm going to have to hold my breath. All I have to focus on is being calm and keeping, my breath stable as I'm underwater. So, that can be helpful. The two last things that I wanted to talk about were getting out there. That's going to help your mental state a lot. It's going to give you a lot of mental confidence because you are building experience. You're going to feel like if you only get out once every 3 months, that one time you get out in those 3 months, there's going to be so much like mental anticipation building. You're going to have expectations. You're going to feel some fear, maybe, I don't know. It depends on the circumstances, but water break. You're going to feel a lot of things, and that's so different than if you're going out 3 times a week. Even if there's not waves, like even if you're just practicing paddling, go out and practice paddling. That I've done that before, and I looked like such a weirdo sometimes, but I'm telling you, it makes a difference in your mind. And it's fun just to get out in the water. So the more that you get out in the situation that you feel fear towards, the better you're going to be able to adapt and conquer that fear, essentially. And there's going to be fears. You're going to have a fear of this, and then you're going to conquer it, and then this fear is going to come up, and you're going to have to conquer that. And, it's just a part of life. But if we have these tools that we use, we can better just walk through it easier, because it's not going anywhere. So it just helps us walk through life. And then the last thing that is important to have in your mental toolbox is believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself in surfing or in life, you're not going to get to where you want to be. You have to be able to believe, visualize, and then, very important step, take action. So you're going for that wave. You have to believe that it is possible that you could catch that wave. And then you have to visualize yourself catching that wave. Maybe, you're going on a walk or something, you're sitting at home, you visualize yourself catching that wave. Or if you see videos online of people catching waves, visualize that being you and you catching that wave. But that is not the most important part. The most important part is then taking action to making that happen. So when you are out in the water, you've been preparing, you're ready, you are as ready as you'll ever be. And you see that wave coming and you feel the fear. Big wave, I don't know. But then you go for it anyway. That moment when you are going for it and paddling between when it breaks and you'll have to catch it, that is a very important moment of you believing in yourself, of having that confidence, body and mind to execute, take action, and go for it. That is what is going to give you that woohoo feeling from surfing. Even if you go for it and you fall, which happens to everyone all the time, it's still going to give you that ammunition internally to be like, okay, I didn't die. I tried it. I didn't die, and I'm going to try it again because I fell, and honestly, it wasn't that bad. So yeah, you got to believe in yourself, which can be hard. I get it. It can be hard, but I think the more that you start, the easier it becomes. So yeah, that is the toolbox tips that I have for you guys with that. Surfing, like when you go out in the water, I have found that surfing in the water, like the water itself is a container, is like a metaphor container. It will reflect to you it will reflect to you, it will reflect back to you whatever you're feeling inside. So if you go out and you're feeling a lot of fear, that's a sign that maybe you should create this toolbox and you should start working on some of these things, and conquering fears. Because once you start conquering fears in the water, you'll get back on land and you'll be like, oh, I can have this conversation easy because I went out there and I surfed that wave and I survived that. That life-threatening situation. I survived, so I can definitely have this non-life-threatening, difficult conversation that I need to have, just as an example. Like, it gives you confidence on land. So yeah, that's just one of the gifts from surfing that I've experienced, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next podcast.